Kylian Mbappe and Paris Saint-Germain are at war.
To France now, talk about Kylian Mbappe.
Kylian Mbappe.
Kylian Mbappe. Kylian Mbappe.
Kylian Mbappe.
Kylian Mbappe.
Kylian Mbappe.
Kylian Mbappe is not happy with the current situation.
He doesn't want to sign an extension to his contract. PSG not at all happy.
Although the build-up to this conflict has been years in the making, the latest and most intense chapter of all began when Mbappe recently sent a letter to the club telling them that he would not be renewing his contract when it expires next summer, meaning after all the time and money that PSG had spent on him, he's now prepared to walk out of the club on a free. The club immediately branded this as a betrayal, as Mbappe has always maintained that he was never going to leave for free. And this prompted a quick response from the Qatari-backed PSG and the club president Nasser Al-Khelaifi, who quickly decided against letting this happen by placing him on the transfer market, slapping a £160 million price tag on him, making it perfectly clear that they were not willing to let Mbappe leave the club this summer for free.
La position est très claire. Je ne veux pas chaque fois répéter. C'est très clair. Si Kylian le veut, reste. Nous, on veut que Kylian reste. Mais il a besoin de signer un nouveau contrat. Si aujourd'hui, quelqu'un lui changeait sa vie, c'est pas ma faute. On ne veut pas léser un des meilleurs joueurs au monde. Partie gratuit.
Now, Mbappe wanting to leave PSG is not a new thing. Ever since Real Madrid declared that they were still very much interested in him, despite the player snubbing them back in 2017 in favor of signing for the French outfits, Mbappe has always had it at the back of his mind that he was one day going to end up wearing the iconic white jersey of Real Madrid. He had been a fan of the club since his childhood, with his idol being Cristiano Ronaldo, but certain decisions and circumstances prevented him from making the transfer. One of which was his decision to accept PSG's ludicrous new transfer offer in 2022, which saw him become the highest paid player in football at the time. With how things currently stand, PSG are not willing to let Mbappe go for free, but at the end of the day, the upper hand in this conflict doesn't belong to the club, but to Mbappe, because it's his choice on whether he wants to stay or leave.
Non, parce que je pensais pas que une lettre ça tuait quelqu'un ou que j'avais offensé quelqu'un, j'ai juste envoyé une lettre et après les réactions.
But how did both parties get to this point in the first place? It all began in 2017. Mbappe became one out of two major signings PSG made that summer. The other transfer, however, was the one that made all the headlines and to this day is considered as a transfer that broke the transfer market when PSG paid €222 million to sign Barcelona's Neymar, making his transfer the most expensive transfer of all time. Mbappe, who arrived at PSG that summer initially on loan, reportedly snubbed Real Madrid to join. After his impressive first season at the Parisian club, they made the loan deal permanent, with the club paying €170 million. Neymar was initially meant to spearhead this PSG team's charge of finally bringing the Champions League home to Paris. However, injuries meant that he was often unavailable during crucial matches. In Neymar's absence, Mbappe often stepped up, and with time, he soon eclipsed the Brazilian, becoming the club's most important player from 2018 onwards. He often averaged around 30 goals a season, and despite this translating to the club's domestic dominance, the same cannot be said about the European stage, as even his presence was not able to save them from constant Champions League disappointment. Real Madrid began to press for a transfer. They declared interest, and knowing he was a fan, they hoped all would be easy from his part, provided they were able to come up with a transfer fee. By 2021, their interest in him intensified, and there was conviction from the fans that he was surely going to end up at the Bernabeu very soon. PSG, knowing this, grew desperate and made an offer they knew he could not refuse.
One of football's biggest stars, Kylian Mbappe, has signed a new contract with Paris Saint-Germain. He will be the highest paid footballer in world football, earning around £1 million a week. He will also receive an enormous signing-on fee of approximately £100 million.
They offered him astronomical wages and bonuses, including a certain amount of power and influence in some of the club's decision-making. Unsurprisingly, he went for the money. He agreed to the new contract PSG offered, much to the disappointment of Real Madrid president Florentino Perez, who was cross with Mbappe for choosing money over his dreams. That deal saw him become the highest paid player in the world. He was effectively given so much power as a 22-year-old that many would envy. The club was set to devote resources to building the team around him, even at the expense of an otherworldly talent like Messi. He had it all. Even though he got a ton of hate and backlash for accepting that offer, he carried on business as usual, staying to help the club build itself and successfully establish an identity in Europe. Things were going great, but once again, reports came out that he wanted to leave. PSG, an already extremely divisive club that was always the go-to place for peak cinematic drama within the football world, was at it again. Mbappe reportedly wasn't too fond of Messi's arrival at the club. His relationship with his friend Neymar was deteriorating, the dressing room was divided, and so on.
Kylian Mbappe is not happy with the current situation at Paris Saint-Germain. Just 5 months after extending his contract with PSG, Kylian is not happy with the project and with some internal situations at PSG.
In late 2022, it was reported that Mbappe wanted to leave the club in January, citing that there were broken promises. He was reportedly unhappy with the transfer window despite being the most groundbreaking window in the club's history, and was also unhappy with his role in the team. The Frenchman didn't like being made to play as a 9, always expressing his desire to operate around the 9 instead. I play differently with France. I'm asked to do other things here compared to with my club. I have a lot more freedom here. The coach knows that there is a number 9 like Olivier Giroud who occupies the defense, and I can walk around and go into space. In Paris, it's different. There isn't that reference point. I'm asked to do the pivots, so it is different. It was apparent that he wasn't too pleased with being made to play centrally in the infamous M&M trio. Frustrated, he took to social media to express his dissatisfaction in a cryptic post in which he used the hashtag #PivotGang as a description of his role in PSG's goalless draw against Reims. Mbappe is undoubtedly a goal-driven player, so I assume his major goals are to win every trophy possible and to become the best player in football. And in most cases, you need the former to become the latter. The problem is that in spite of their domestic dominance, PSG has become a hindrance in his efforts to achieving this, which is why, despite already winning the World Cup, maintaining astronomical goal-scoring numbers every season, picking up multiple league titles, becoming the captain of his country's national team, and also leading them to another World Cup final, his efforts in solidifying himself as the best of his generation has largely been downplayed due to the fact that he plays for PSG in a quote-unquote farmers league. Although Mbappe has gone on record to say that his biggest dream was to win the Champions League with PSG, the constant fueling of a potential exit out of the club and the recent happenings have suggested otherwise, leading me to come to a personal assumption that even though he wants to win the Champions League is just a means to his end goal of wanting to be considered the best, which in actuality can only be solidified the moment he picks up his first of possibly several Ballon d'Ors. Based off that assumption, PSG will never give him what he wants, and he knows it. His credibility will always come into question no matter what he achieves at PSG. Along with the club's constant Champions League disappointments, his goal-scoring stats alone unfortunately hasn't helped him in fulfilling his ambitions so long as he's at PSG. I mean, we don't need to look too far to Bayern Munich to realize that despite scoring a lot of goals and winning the Bundesliga every single season, Robert Lewandowski only became a serious contender for the Ballon d'Or in 2020 because of Bayern's impressive display on the European stage. The Bundesliga, just like the Ligue 1 title, has far been discarded from being a key criteria for winning the Ballon d'Or solely because of how easy it is for Bayern and PSG to win them respectively. The road, as far as this era is concerned, to being considered the greatest in the world is by winning the Ballon d'Or, an award which operates as a medium for rewarding individual brilliance, which most of the time is only often recognized based on the success of the team that individual has been a part of. It's impossible to know what Mbappe truly prioritized because we of course don't know what goes on in his mind, but judging by the fact that he's already had multiple team successes, including winning football's crown jewel, naturally individual accolades will start to take center focus in his mind. Unfortunately, Paris Saint-Germain has not been able to establish the right environment for him to be able to achieve what he wants, despite him keeping his own end of the bargain. And by this fact, seeing other players from other teams win the award despite him performing as great as them on an individual level has been a major cause for concern for him. Do people trivialize my performance? Yes, but at the same time, I don't blame them. In France, they saw me grow up. They saw me all the time. At PSG, every weekend or in the national team. And I've been scoring a lot for years. So, for people, it's become normal. I never complained that my performances were trivialized. I am young. I had the chance to be an observer not so long ago before being an actor. And myself, I trivialized what Messi was doing, what Ronaldo was doing, what the great players were doing. We are in a consumer society where, quote, it's good, but do it again. And the fact that I'm right next door in Paris, I think playing at PSG doesn't help me because it's a divisive team, a divisive club. So of course it attracts gossip, but it doesn't bother me because I know what I'm doing and how I do it. Mbappe, either consciously or subconsciously, feels that the longer he stays at PSG, the more difficult it will be for him to achieve his goals, or the earlier he moves to Real Madrid, the better. I mean, he was a star around the same time his compatriot Karim Benzema took the reins after Cristiano Ronaldo at Real Madrid, and now he already has a Ballon d'Or. The recent rise of Erling Haaland has played a key role in his recent decisions, as the Norwegian seemingly out of nowhere went from Borussia Dortmund to Manchester City, won the treble, which includes the Champions League, and is now being considered an even stronger Ballon d'Or candidate for this year alone than Mbappe had ever been throughout the entirety of his career, despite the Frenchman making it to the top a lot earlier. Individually, Haaland has great stats and so does Mbappe too. The difference is that Haaland's team came through for him and Mbappe's has been a constant disappointment. Mbappe has always wanted to move to Real Madrid, and since Real Madrid is his childhood club, he simply wants to be a part of their history, winning the Champions League over there since it's something that comes extremely natural for them, and will also provide him a much better opportunity of winning the Ballon d'Or. If winning the the Champions League was his ultimate aim, it's much easier to win it at Real Madrid. And if the Ballon d'Or is his ultimate aim, it is also still much easier winning it at Real Madrid. He feels stuck at PSG, and it would have been much easier to sympathize with him if he hadn't accepted that humongous contract from PSG going to Real Madrid when he had the chance. But then again, anyone in his position would have done exactly the same thing. Which now brings us to today. Reports came out in early July that Mbappe sent the club a letter telling them that he would not be extending his contract, which was due to expire next year. This for PSG could only mean one thing. He was planning on moving to Real Madrid on a free next summer, something the club saw as an act of betrayal considering he had said in multiple interviews that he was never going to leave PSG for free. In response to this, they quickly placed him on the transfer market, hoping to get between 100 to 160 million euros for him. We want him to stay, but he can't leave for free. There was a verbal agreement and he had discussed it in an interview, and I was really shocked to learn that he had decided to leave for free. It's very disappointing because Mbappe is a fantastic boy, a real gentleman, and to leave for free, weakening the biggest club in France, it's not him. When I heard the news, I was shocked and disappointed.
La position est très claire. Je ne veux pas chaque fois répéter. C'est très clair. Si Kylian le veut, reste. Nous, on veut que Kylian reste. Mais le besoin de signer un nouveau contrat. On ne veut pas léser un des meilleurs joueurs au monde. Partie gratuit.
But as we all know, the reality of the transfer window, no one would ever pay that kind of money for a player whose intention to leave has already been publicly stated, especially considering the fact that he would be eventually free the next summer. PSG, undoubtedly aware of this fact, became desperate. As per reports from Marca, Real Madrid are not prepared to pay anything to sign Mbappe this summer, and so when a 700 million euros offer came in from Saudi Arabian club Al Hilal to take the Frenchman for a year, they immediately accepted it. Mbappe, however, rejected it, claiming he wants to play in Europe. This led to PSG president Al Khelafi giving the forward an ultimatum of 2 weeks to sign a new contract with them or the door is open. It's for him to decide for himself next week or at the most in the next 2 weeks, and if he does not want to sign a new contract, the door is open. It's like that for him and everyone else. Nobody's bigger than the club, no player, not even me. It's very clear, by the standards of football, you never see your best player leave for free. It just doesn't happen. But in reality, does it even matter what the club wants? They are now completely at the mercy of Kylian Mbappe. The Frenchman doesn't want to leave and the club cannot sell him against his will. In an attempt to put pressure on him to leave, the club resorted to freezing him out of the team by not letting him go to the team's pre-season tour to Japan and South Korea, and will also be benched throughout the entirety of the following season. But this unsurprisingly seems to unfaze the Frenchman as he still has the upper hand in this situation. He would gladly accept staying at the club for one more year, knowing he would still earn around 100 million euros from PSG for doing so.
Non, parce que je pensais pas que une lettre ça tuait quelqu'un ou que j'avais offensé quelqu'un. J'ai juste envoyé une lettre et après les réactions, on peut pas contrôler les réactions, mais ça m'importe peu.
According to Sky Sports, Kave Solheko, if Mbappe stays where he is, he stands to earn 260 million euros from PSG and Real Madrid combined. PSG feel this is all about money. They have already invested about £500 million in Kylian Mbappe. When you factor in what they paid to get him from Monaco and also the wages and all the bonuses they've paid him, if he stays at PSG for one more year, he would earn more than £100 million in wages and bonuses. The next summer, when he moves to Real Madrid on a free transfer, Real Madrid would give him a £160 million signing on fee. So as long as he stays where he is, he stands to make £260 million and massive wages when he moves to Real Madrid. PSG are saying, we're not going to let that happen. We want to sell you now and get a transfer fee, maybe 100 to 150 million pounds, and we'll also save having to pay you another 100 million pounds over the next 12 months. This was a statement from Mbappe's entourage in light of this entire situation. After having publicly declared in recent weeks that he would be a Parisian next season, Kylian Mbappe did not ask for his departure this summer but merely confirmed to the club that he was not going to activate his additional year. The management of the club in charge of its extension was informed of its decision on July 15, 2022, and the sole purpose of the letter was to confirm what has already been orally clarified previously. Mbappe and his entourage claimed that they have not discussed this point with the club again during the year except 15 days ago to announce the sending of the letter, nor has any possible new extension been mentioned. Finally, Mbappe and his entourage regret that the receipt of this letter has been transmitted to the media and that these exchanges are made public with the sole aim of damaging his reputation and the smooth running of the conversations with the club. PSG have been put in an impossible position. Of course, we shouldn't get away from the fact that this problem is a problem that they created for themselves in the first place. But still, seeing their £500 million investment just walk out on a free is extremely triggering. Former PSG sporting director Leonardo is of the opinion that for the benefit of the club, Mbappe has to move on. For the good of PSG, I think the time has come for Mbappe to go. No matter what, Paris Saint-Germain existed before Kylian Mbappe and it will exist after him. He's been in Paris for 6 years, and over those 6 seasons, 5 different clubs have won the Champions League, none of which had Kylian Mbappe in their ranks. That means it's entirely possible to win this competition without him. With his behavior over the last 2 years, Mbappe is showing that he's not yet a player capable of really guiding a team. He's a great player, he's not a leader. He's a great goal scorer, not a creative one. It's hard to build a team around him. Whether you agree with Leonardo's statements or not, you have to agree that PSG have lost financially and in terms of their reputation because of their need to keep Mbappe at the club. He doesn't want to be there, and it appears no amount of money this time will ever convince him to stay. Mbappe will achieve his goals faster at a club like Real Madrid, and as Leonardo put it here, it is entirely possible for PSG to win the Champions League without him. So that's why it's best at this point for both parties to part ways.